let's set up for the next scene.
Why, hello there. Nice to see you. As you can see, we're in the middle of making a movie. It's a picture in which I play the part of an automotive engineer. We've selected the Packard Proving Grounds here as one of our locations. I'm particularly happy with the opportunity of being here, too, because as a Packard owner, I'm finding out a lot of things about my car that I never fully appreciated before. In the first place, these proving grounds are a symbol of the extent to which Packard goes to prove, maintain, guard, if you will, the Packard heritage of quality, a word synonymous with the name Packard. Now, let me tell you a little of what I've learned here at this wonderful place. These beautiful grounds cover an area of 560 acres near the town of Utica, Michigan. They contain the world's fastest concrete track, which is 55 feet wide and 2.5 miles long. The entrance and exits of the curves are constructed so that no reduction of speed is ever necessary as the test cars go around, often at speeds of better than 100 miles an hour. The infield covers 265 acres and is actually an emergency landing field in this area. The proving grounds also contain 18 miles of test roads with various surface formations approximating some of the nation's worst driving conditions. The buildings house the offices, garages, machine and repair shops, plus special testing laboratories. You see, the sole purpose of all this is to uphold Packard quality by providing a constant check on engineering theory and manufacturing standards. In other words, when it comes to quality, there's no guesswork. The boys out here deal in cold, hard facts. They call themselves the watchdogs of production, and here's why. Long before a new model Packard is ever built, the boys out here begin their watchdogging in cooperation with the engineers of the plant in what is called the development stage. Practically every part under development for use in a new model gets a going over out here in the test laboratories. Maybe it's a new piece of mechanism in the steering assembly, or any one of 100 parts or parts of parts planned for the new car. Regardless, it must pass its rigid test for quality of operation. For example, a proposed improvement in the rear suspension system calls for special apparatus to test and record the frequency and friction in leaf springs. New seat comfort is accurately gauged by checking cushion rate and deflection. Next year's frame is checked and double-checked for rigidity and safety under terrific strain. Door handles and trunk locks. Fans and fan belts even must pass tests for endurance and wear far beyond anything ever expected of them in normal life. Engines under development are sent to the dynamometer cells where, for not hundreds but thousands of hours, they are run at all speeds while their performance is watched and recorded with the aid of the latest type of electronic equipment. There are stroboscopes for studying the various engine parts in operation, hundreds of other gauges, instruments, and pieces of special apparatus, all to make fact-finding a scientific reality and eliminate any possible guesswork. I tell you...
Sorry to interrupt, Addison, but we're ready to shoot your next scene over in the soundproof laboratory. Here's the prop.
Right away, Art. Oh, you may be interested in seeing this scene. According to the story in this movie we're making, I'm supposed to test a new air cleaner, which was designed by a young engineer who, well, he just happens to be my son. So, you see, well, you'll see. The scene explains itself. Here we are in one of the most interesting laboratories out here. This room is completely insulated with fiberglass and is absolutely soundproof. And since quietness of operation and almost complete insulation from noise is one of Packard's finest features, you can see why this laboratory, with all its special equipment, is so important. Right, Art?
Right. Take this piece of apparatus here. I understand it can detect and record sounds in frequencies much higher or much lower than the human ear can hear.
You see? Again, no guesswork.
Shall we go to work?
Right away.
Now, here's the situation. This air cleaner, designed by your son, has come through every test. It functions perfectly, except
That I suspect it might be too noisy, so I make the test with it on the car.
Of course, you hope you're wrong, because if you okay the design, it'll mean a lot to your son. If you can't okay it, well, all his work is, well, out the window. I want to see that idea in your expression.
Okay, shall we try it?
All right, roll it.
Quiet, please.
Hello, Bob. This is Dad. Bad news. It's too noisy. Because of its low restriction, it roars at between 30 and 50 miles an hour. I can't okay your design. Sorry. Keep trying.
Cut. That looks fine to me. Let's get ready for the next scene.
You know, there's one thing about this director of ours. He insists that everything be technically correct. Everything just as it actually happened.
That's why we came to the proving ground, to get the real thing.
To get back to what I was saying about the Packard watchdogs, when the various and individual parts have come through all the tests, they are then okayed as parts for the new models. Of course, this doesn't mean that they're okay for production. It just means that they can be included as part of the new hand-built prototypes, the pilot models of the cars to come, if they can still meet the high standards of quality. And incidentally, all Packard products are tested against one standard. You can't compromise when it comes to top quality. So, once again, the crew of watchdogs out at the proving grounds take over. And here's what happens. Trained project engineers specializing in brakes, steering, suspension, engine performance, safety, and so on, begin a new series of fact-finding tests. These pilot models go through more than 100 different tests for speed, economy, steering effort, ride, safety, structural rigidity, brakes, ease and convenience of operation. However, even though the test engineers make careful observations and full reports, they don't rely on human reactions alone. Just to be sure that guesswork is taken out of this all-important job, again, the engineers employ a tremendous variety of scientific instruments. For instance, here's a car equipped with a fifth wheel and instruments to record an accurate acceleration rate throughout the entire speed range. There are special instruments for testing brake equipment, operating economy, and axle noises. There are gauges and meters for checking stress and strain, and the temperature of oils, cylinder heads, cooling systems, and all functional parts. Here's the famous towing dynamometer set up in a Jeep. This equipment checks the car's tractive factors by simulating a 24-hour hill climb at full throttle. Yes, the watchdogs out here take full advantage of scientific instruments in their important job of finding facts. Facts that ensure quality and safety. However, Even so, this is still only part of the story. When the new models are approved for production, more watchdogs go into action in the material testing laboratories in the plant itself. Samples of all raw materials that go into the car are carefully examined and checked against top quality standards. Upholstery fabrics are tested for tensile strength and wearing ability, as well as ability to hold their beautiful colors under the fadometer, or sunshine machine. Rubber is tested for quality, and so are the paints, the glass, and the many different kinds of metal that go into the building of a Packard product. Here again, scientific equipment plus trained technicians take the guesswork out of the job. Even the quality and safety of the material in a weld is checked. And although it takes costly X-ray equipment to do it, nothing is left to chance. That same thing holds true in the receiving laboratories, where all purchased component parts are spot checked and tested against Packard's exacting specifications for high quality. Even though these individual parts have been inspected by the original manufacturer, they're spot checked again. And when a part is too small for ordinary visual inspection, it is magnified up to 32.5 times and checked against huge but precise gauges. But again, that's still not all. The material and workmanship of every step in the production of a Packard product must be okayed for quality by experienced and specialized inspectors. This constant inspection is all part of a complete and continuous system of quality control, covering manufacturing processes, sub-assemblies, assemblies, and the final product. But even when the final product receives its complete okay, that's still not the end of this plan for perfection. This task of maintaining and guarding Packard's superior quality and super safety. Why? Because cars are taken at random from the production line and again sent to the watchdogs at the proving grounds, where, as finished products, the Packards and Clippers are put through a grueling endurance test of not 5,000, 10, but up to 50,000 of the toughest kind of miles. rigorous, exacting endurance test. Cars are brought into the garage at regular intervals for safety inspections and normal service. Then, back they go for more road work. And it doesn't make any difference what the weather. The tests go on. And what's more, just to be doubly sure that Packards can take it in all kinds of weather, they have to pass more performance tests in a special weather-controlled room under temperatures that go down to an Arctic-like 40 below zero, or up to torrid tropical temperatures of 125 degrees. Believe you me, that's mighty hot. But that's the purpose of these tests, because a Packard has to be able to take it. That's why, day or night, you can see them out here piling up the thousands and thousands of miles on the concrete track so scientifically constructed that the Packards can literally steer themselves around the beautifully banked curves. Just relax and enjoy the ride. What a job. Of course, it isn't all that easy, because not just occasionally, but every 2 hours, the cars must be driven over the twisting body rack road. The road that puts a terrific strain on every structural part of the car in a test for safety as well as endurance. Then, through the water bath that splashes and soaks and tests the tightness and safety of all exposed seals. Again, not just once or a dozen times, but a total of 500 times in hub-deep water. All this, along with a total of 250 trips over the railroad. Railroad ties, that is. Plus an additional 100 miles of hub-deep travel through the sandy desert area. More than prove that Packard products are built to take it. Talk about a tough test for brake housings, transmissions, and engine power. Boy, this is it. You know, many of the competitive cars are brought out here and put through this endurance test to see how they compare with staying power and quality. But in spite of their claims, they just can't take it. It takes the power of a Packard to come through these tests and climb these hills with grades of over 30% with effortless ease. Finally, when all of the endurance tests are completed, the test cars are torn down, and every single part, every nut and bolt, spread out for the engineers to study, examine, and search for ways and means to make still further improvements. For instance, if a different or stronger metal were used on this particular part, it might last longer, be still safer. Here's something that needs redesigning, and so it goes, until everything is checked and a careful record kept of its performance against Packard's high standards of safety and quality. Are you beginning to see now how all this is just another example of the fact that Packard is a completely independent manufacturer? Are you beginning to see, too, what I meant when I said that I was learning things out here that made me, as a Packard owner, have a greater appreciation for my car? And speaking of appreciation, the other day, just to show that they had an appreciation for what we call showmanship, the test drivers, the engineers, put on a little exhibition for us.
The exhibition began with an exciting race between the Packard products. I wasn't surprised at the outcome. Next was an economy run against a couple of competitive cars. Each car was equipped with special gas tanks holding only 1/10 of a gallon. All cars were driven at the same speed. winner, the Packard Clipper. Then came a race to test passing ability in the 40 to 70 mile range.
The Packard Patrician goes from 40 to 70 miles an hour in 12.3 seconds in the test. And that test really means something when it comes to safety, because Packard's greatest driving power, what the engineers call torque, comes in the speed range where it's needed most.
Now, the next little demonstration had to do with comparing the suspension system of a Packard with that of a competitive car. The measuring instruments weren't exactly scientific, but it was fun to watch. Inside the competitive car, the ride seemed to be a little rough, whereas the ride delivered by the Packard, well, it spoke for itself. The whole show was climaxed by a demonstration of Packard's power steering ease in the waltz of the cars.
Yes, performance does prove Packard's perfection. That's one thing I certainly learned from the watchdogs here at the proving ground. No wonder everyone is saying now, look to Packard, the new standard of comparison. And I say, now more than ever, just ask the man who owns one.
Watch this next shot closely, and you'll see what I mean about torsion bar suspension. Notice there's no slide nor sway in the turn, even at this blistering speed. You have perfect control. All the starters at Indianapolis since 1953 have been equipped with some type of torsion bar suspension. Looks as if that's about all on this reel.
You got room for another customer?
Hi, Tom. Turn on the lights and come on in. This is Helen.
How do you do?
How do you do?
And Carl.
Carl,
Mr. and Mrs. Bowman.
I'm very glad to know you, I'm sure.
And this is Tom Taylor, another automobile bug like me.
So Harvey's found a new audience for his home movies.
He has a wonderful collection. We were enjoying every minute of it.
All I did was mention this new torsion suspension I've heard so much about. Man, I sure pulled the trigger. I didn't know the gun was loaded.
You really put your foot in it now. I'm just an amateur. Tom's an authority on the subject. He's one of the automotive engineers who developed and perfected the first torsion bar suspension on a passenger car in this country.
Well, I don't get the point of this torsion bar gadget. I don't want to go racing around corners at 90 miles an hour. I want a car that's comfortable and safe and reliable. A big, roomy car I can relax in with a powerful engine and good brakes. So where does this torsion bar business fit in?
I was merely showing that the racers have proved that torsion bar suspension gives the best possible control of a car.
I know what Helen's driving at, and she's right. She'd probably have gotten your point if you'd started way back at the beginning.
I guess you're right at that. Go ahead, you tell her.
Well, you know the story as well as I do, Harvey. Cars have always been your hobby.
But they've been your bread and butter for a good many years. Why, you're part of the story.
Hey, fellas, let's quit passing the buck.
Yes, you said it started way back. What did you mean?
Well, a moment ago you said you wanted comfort in your car. What we in the automobile industry call a smooth, soft ride. Look over here. These old beauties were some of the best of their time, but they rode like buckboards, jarred the living daylights out of their passengers. So from the very beginning, automotive research and engineering faced the problem of developing a softer ride. They used buggy springs and wagon springs, crosswise of the chassis and lengthwise of it. As early as 1910, our company installed shock absorbers as standard equipment on this model. And of course, each year cars were being improved to provide more power and performance. But practically everything that made the ride softer decreased the load carrying capacity and increased the car's tendency to pitch and bottom. And the faster a car could go, the more hazardous the soft ride became. By the 1930s, just about when I started with the company, we had engineered and developed a manual ride control so the driver could adjust the ride to the road and the rate of travel. The need for this compromise indicates the dilemma automotive engineers faced. Soft ride versus control. In other words, what price comfort? To get the soft, easy ride the customers demanded, they had to compromise safety, stability, and control.
Well, I don't see where all this is leading. My car seems to ride quite comfortably, and well, I never have any feeling that it's out of control.
In a sense, you're right. Especially in good driving conditions, on smooth roads with gentle curves. My point is, from about the mid-30s until a few years ago, automotive engineers fought the battle of comfort versus control year after year. Inevitably, of course, they arrived at some fair compromises. But consider the disadvantages of conventional suspension that still existed in even the finest cars up to a couple of years ago. What happens when you fill the back seat with passengers and the trunk with luggage?
Why, the back end sinks down and the front end comes up.
Right. This changes the steering alignment and decreases the stability of the car. Furthermore, at night, they make your headlights ride so high they're not safe for you, and they blind the oncoming traffic. And when you have to accelerate fast, the same thing happens. Front end up, back end down. Let's say you're going up and over a railroad grade crossing. The back end pitches up, then slams down and hits bottom. Or you come to a dip in the road. The back end hits bottom, then pitches up and out.
You know, one time I threw the children, the dog, and some packages right off the back seat on the floor, just that way.
When you go around a corner, even at moderate speed, the front end dips and the car tends to roll. Whenever your car's weight shifts off balance in any direction, you're losing control. When you have to make a hard stop, what happens?
The car pitches forward, of course. And if you're on slippery pavement, well...
And obviously, as we increase horsepower and speed, these control factors become even more critical. And no matter what they do to improve the conventional types of suspension, in which the front wheels and rear wheels are independent of each other, these things we've been talking about can't be overcome. Here's why. When you hit a bump in the road, a chain of 4 reactions takes place. The front wheels go up, then come down. Then the back wheels go up and come down. At normal road speeds, the front end is still dropping as the rear end is rising. This throws the back end higher, and of course it comes down harder, hitting bottom frequently.
So where does this new torsion bar suspension idea fit into the picture?
I'm getting to that.
That's where Tom here and the men working with him in research and engineering scooped the rest of the automobile industry.
Scores of our engineers worked on it. Don't forget, we had the finest equipment, facilities, and technicians to work with, and a tradition of leadership in research and engineering that dates back to the early part of the century. We reasoned this way. Further attempts to reconcile the comfort versus control dilemma by merely improving conventional suspension systems could result only in minor improvements. But if we could employ an entirely new suspension principle that would give a soft ride and still keep the control already obtained in the race cars, well, we could have our cake and eat it too.
And that's just what they did.
Well, just what did they do?
Maybe I can show you. Harvey, how are you coming with that scale model chassis you were building for me?
Just about done with it. Needs some touching up yet.
Man, you've done a beautiful job.
Harvey, that's marvelous.
It really is beautiful.
This shows the perfected torsion-level suspension system. These long white rods are the main torsion bars.
Where are the springs?
The 2 main torsion bars are the springs.
I hope you'll pardon my feminine mind, but before we go any farther, just what is a torsion bar?
Well, torsion means twist. A torsion bar is a rod of spring steel that will twist when loaded, then untwist, or spring back to its original condition when unloaded.
Oh, I see what you mean. The spring is in the twist or the torsion of the bar.
Right. And here's the key to the system. On each side, the front wheel and the rear wheel are linked together by a main torsion bar so that they work together as a team. With this system, when a front wheel goes up or down, this front linkage twists or loads the front end of the torsion bar one way or the other. And when a rear wheel goes up or down, this linkage twists or loads the rear end of the torsion bar one way or the other. Of course, when either end of the bar is loaded, it twists the other end and operates the linkage there. So the front and rear wheel work together simultaneously. When the front wheel hits a bump, it loads the main torsion bar, which instantly transmits an equal loading to the rear wheel. As the front wheel comes down again, it twists the main torsion bar in the opposite direction, causing an instant and equal reaction at the rear. As the rear wheel goes over the same bump, it twists the bar first one way, then the other, causing an equal and simultaneous loading of the front wheel. Consequently, in a car equipped with torsion bar suspension, the car raises and lowers uniformly front and rear. There's hardly any pitch, and the car literally floats over bumps and holes. When a car comes to a hard stop, its weight shifts forward, and the front end wants to dip down. But remember, the rear axle torque arms are instantly loaded the same way, so the whole car squats down with very little pitch. On the other hand, when accelerating away from a stop, which tends to lower the rear and raise the front, the rear axle torque reaction tends to raise the rear end of the car to keep it level. What keeps the car level when taking a corner? It's because we use the force, which makes an ordinary car sway, to actually stiffen the spring action of our torsion bar. You see, this torsion bar gives us the softest spring action when its full length is used to take the shock of a bump. The bump loads only one end of the bar at a time. But when turning a corner, the bar is loaded from both ends at the same time, front and rear wheel. So only one half of its length acts like a spring for each wheel. This momentary stiffening of the spring action is what keeps the car level on corners. Another thing, this new torsion bar suspension system automatically levels the car when the load is changed. That is, when more passengers or baggage are added. These two short torsion bars and this electric motor actually do the leveling. When the rear end of the car is loaded or unloaded, the levelizer mechanism starts automatically. A built-in time delay keeps it from working until it knows that this load change is not just another bump. After several seconds, the mechanism levels the car. The load levelizer automatically keeps the car within 5/8 inch of level at all times. The best way to appreciate the sure-footed control of this new torsion level ride is to see it in action. Compare it with a car that has no torsion bar suspension nor load levelizer. A car we thought was tops only a couple of years ago. With our torsion level ride, as we call it, we can have both comfort and control. We can have our cake and eat it too.
Yes, I see what you mean, all right.
You must have a perfectly fascinating job to design and develop things like this.
It never gets monotonous, that's for sure. There's the constant challenge to make one new improvement on top of another. For instance, the elimination of the shift lever from transmission systems.
The what?
How can you drive without it?
Up until recently, even the so-called automatic transmissions have not been completely automatic. In this day and age, a truly automatic transmission system should respond to an electronic control at the touch of a fingertip. It should be as simple and easy to operate as push-button radios and home appliances. So our engineers have designed and developed an automatic push-button selector that controls our automatic transmission by an electronic device, as easy as turning on a light. It gives you instantaneous drive range selection at the touch of a finger. Touch the button, and away you go. Truly automatic motoring.
What a wonderful convenience. Real touch and go driving.
There's nothing like it. Puts an exciting new sensation in driving. Like taking off on a trip to the moon.
What happens if you accidentally push the wrong button?
It's foolproof. An automatic safety control built right into the electronic selector cancels your mistake.
Have you figured out how to eliminate the driver yet?
Sometimes solving one problem gives us the answer to another. For instance, drivers like the ease and convenience of an automatic transmission. But they also want the gas mileage that overdrive gives. So one of the greatest improvements we could make would be to build the economy of overdrive into our automatic transmission.
Well, how come that's never been done before?
Because the combination is mighty hard to do. To achieve the economy of a slower operating engine at a given car speed, it required 3 elements in the right combination. We had to have an ideal engine, transmission, rear axle combination. A numerically low ratio that called for exceptionally high torque in the engine. Fortunately, our engine designers were Johnny on the spot with the answer. Their problem had been to develop and build the most powerful engine with the highest torque ever delivered at the rear wheel in a passenger car. As a result, we got the ideal power ratio we need for overdrive economy in an automatic transmission. You have to see this new combination on the proving grounds to appreciate the results it achieves. It provides a blistering getaway from a standstill. has tremendous reserve torque for climbing steep grades. And the new economy of overdrive in our automatic transmission, plus our push-button controls, are an engineer's dream come true. So you see, we were able to improve our automatic transmission and rear axle ratio to build overdrive economy into them by building an engine that delivers maximum torque, efficiency, and fuel economy.
Boy, that sounds like a wonderful combination.
Here's another spot where there was room for improvement. The conventional differential. Why? Well, if you've ever been caught in soft sand or mud, you'll know what I mean. The one rear wheel that's in the hole just spins and digs itself in deeper, while the other rear wheel stands idle, and you're stuck. This is the path of the power through the old differential. Following the line of least resistance, it always went to the spinning wheel that has no traction. Now, to overcome this, our engineers succeeded in designing a simple method of transferring the power through a new kind of differential to the wheel that's on firm ground and has traction. As a result, the car with the new twin traction differential has less of a tendency to dig itself into sand or mud. But in case your car should be driven into a hole or a deep rut where the traction is poor, the moment one rear wheel begins to lose traction by spinning, twin traction instantly transfers the power to the other wheel, and out you go. On rough washboard roads where sometimes the rear wheel bounces and spins when power is applied, this new instantaneous power transfer from the bouncing wheel to the wheel that has good traction avoids that chattering spin. It makes a smoother and safer turn on rough or slippery pavements. And on winter ice, where the old differential would spin one wheel helplessly while the car stands still, now with twin traction, you not only move off the ice easily, you have enough power and enough traction to pull 5 cars off the ice. This is the first great improvement in rear axle design since we introduced the hypoid gear rear axle in the early 20s.
What else have you up your sleeve?
Oh, we're working on all kinds of developments we can't even talk about yet. You see, in automotive research and engineering, many of us are planning as much as 5 to 10 years ahead.
We've got to get going. I promised Beverly and Jean we'd meet him at the club just about now.
Well, give me just a couple of moments to fix my powder.
Settle down, boys. We'll be a while yet.
There's no point in taking both cars. We're all coming back here afterward. Which one shall it be?
Let's take this one.
Okay, we'll take your car and leave mine here.
Who's going to drive?
You've already decided that, haven't you?
Say, Harv, let you and I sit in the back for a change, just to see how it feels.
Okay by me.
Experience.
Hey, mister, you want to see something really terrific? Watch.
How about that, huh?
What'll they think of next?
Packard, builder of America's most exciting car, and your nearby Packard dealer invite you to a dramatic half hour of great entertainment with Rebound.
Now look to Packard.
Look to Packard for built-in quality and proved performance.
Hi there. You've heard me say the new 53 Packards are engineered to outperform and built to outlast them all. Now I'd like to show you proof.
This is the Packard Proving Grounds. We're looking at the world's fastest closed track. Here, brand new Packards, picked at random, are raced 30,000 miles. You drive across railroad tracks, but Packard test drivers straddle them to prove that Packards can take most anything, including water deep enough to dampen the spirit of most cars. This 35% grade rivaled San Francisco's steepest hill. Watch Packard Ultramatic cut it down to size. 16 hours in and out of sand traps over roads that take a crew of experts to keep rough. Packards undergo every test imaginable. After 50,000 chassis jolting miles, each Packard test car is completely dismantled, and the condition of every mechanical part is examined at Packard's engineering laboratories. Do you wonder that 53% of all the Packards ever built, since way back in 1899, are still in use? Truly, built like a Packard means built to last.
Fremont's car ready yet, Don?
Yeah, it certainly is. Mr. Fremont's getting a great car.
You know, when I sell a used Packard, I know I've made a friend. Because Packard gives you more new car miles for your money. Now, this Packard I've just sold, I took in trade last week. Has 28,000 miles on it. We carefully checked every vital part before selling it. But it didn't need much service. Because built like a Packard means built to last. That's why more than half the Packards ever built, since 1899, are still on the road. Next to a new Packard, your best car buy is a late model used Packard. Look for the blue ribbon, the sign of extra unused mileage.
pages of America's most popular magazine, your TV Reader's Digest. Presented by the Studebaker Packard Corporation and its dealers. Studebaker, with its tradition of fine craftsmanship, and Packard, with its tradition of inspired engineering, now one, as a great American tradition burns bright again to bring you the most finely crafted automobiles of our time. And now your host, Hugh Riley.
It's a pleasure to welcome you to our TV Reader's Digest program and to this week's tense drama of an American held captive by the Chinese Reds. This month, November, is turning out to be the most significant month in the history of Packard. Yes, after more than half a century as a maker of fine automobiles, Packard now presents the greatest Packard of them all. Watch now, and you'll see why this great new Packard for 1956 is creating such excitement in the automotive world. First, notice how it hugs the road, yet seems almost to float. See how it stays under perfect control, not only on this high-speed track, but over roads so rough that you'd get a real shaking in other cars. And see how beautifully it corners. Proof Packard's famous torsion level ride has been still further advanced in 1956 to give you even greater comfort and safety. Now watch another triumph of creative engineering. Packard's electronic push-button control. Safe, smooth, sure electronic control. Touch a button, and Packard's Ultramatic transmission goes into electronic action with a choice of smooth cruising glide or lightning fast getaway. Your Packard dealer invites you to take the key and see. Drive America's easiest handling, safest riding car with the most powerful engine in the industry, up to 310 horsepower. I know you'll agree that America's finest car is the new Packard for 1956. Perhaps you're one of the many friends of our program who suggested we dramatize the story of an American missionary in communist China. Here it is, from a recent issue of Reader's Digest, the timely true story, The Brainwashing of John Hayes. Let's turn from our story for a moment and find out what's going on here in this shadow box. Keeping things on an even keel is not always as easy as it looks. But the human body is a well-coordinated mechanism, able to adapt itself to very rough going. And just like Mother Nature's framework, a new automotive suspension system created by Packard and using full-length torsion bars has been designed to take you smoothly, safely over even roughest roads. Ordinary leaf and coil springs are eliminated. Instead, an upward force on the front wheel is transmitted by a twist of the torsion bar into a downward pressure on the rear wheel, which, being on the road, can't go down. So the reaction goes upward, keeping the car level, floating the car over the bump. This same thing happens when the rear wheel goes over a bump. And that's how torsion level ride works. Built by Packard craftsmen, only America's finest medium-priced car, the 56 Clipper, could bring you torsion level ride. This new Clipper is equipped with Ultramatic transmission. It has the most powerful engine in its field, up to 275 horsepower. And remember, Clipper is the only car in its field with torsion level ride. Your Packard dealer invites you to see and drive the 56 Clipper soon. Once again, our scene is present-day China, and our story, the true account of the brainwashing of John Hayes, the American missionary. The Packard division of Studebaker Packard Corporation presents the greatest Packard of them all, the new Packard for 1956. The Packard Patrician series, the sedan, and the Patrician hardtop. Both magnificent automobiles. No question about it, this is America's finest car. Distinguished new styling has been combined with creative engineering. The same great engineering that produced Packard's famous torsion level ride. Here's proof that Packard's full-length torsion bar suspension is even further advanced for 1956. Now, motoring becomes pleasanter, safer, more relaxing in every way. And here's a sample of Packard's power. The new Packard V8 engine delivers more driving force to the rear wheels than any other engine. It's America's easiest handling, safest riding car. It doesn't take an expert to notice the distinction this car carries with it. For 1956, Packard's Ultramatic transmission is operated electronically at the touch of your finger. Electronic push-button control, another triumph of Packard engineering. Safest, surest, smoothest of all automatic transmissions. Your Packard dealer invites you to see and drive the greatest Packard of them all. Packard for 1956. I'm Hugh Riley, your host for the Studebaker Packard Corporation and its dealers. This week, let's watch a small boy and his father waging a great struggle. One of the most memorable of all our stories from Reader's Digest. It's the true story of the Archer She case. Hugh Riley speaking for the Studebaker Packard Corporation and its dealers. See and drive the new Studebaker and the new Packard and Clipper soon.